Hello, welcome back to where I read fan fictions from AO3, wherever I end up finding them. So today we're going to be doing a different fan fiction. As you can see by the title of the video, it is a one-shot of all that is currently written. With that out of the way, welcome to Like a Moth to a Flame by Tallburntworms. I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Also, I do apologize for the poor audio quality. There is a hurricane going on as I'm recording this, so there are more than a few noises. No achieve warnings apply. This is Batman, all media types, Red Robin, comics, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Rick Riordan, The Heroes of Olympus, Rick Riordan. The relationships will be Tim Drake, Leo Valdez, Tim Drake and Leo Valdez, Bat family members and Tim Drake and Ra's al Ghul, Leo Valdez and Ra's al Ghul, Bat family members DCU and Leo Valdez. Characters include Leo Valdez, Tim Drake, Ra's al Ghul, Jason Todd, Bruce Wayne, Cassandra Cain, Stephanie Brown, Damian Wayne, Duke Thomas, Dick Grayson, Barbara Gordon. Additional tags include Past Calypso, Leo Valdez, Manipulative, Ra's al Ghul being a jerk, Tim Drake centric, Leo Valdez centric, Leo Valdez needs a hug, bisexual Leo Valdez, Tim Drake needs a hug, developing relationships manipulation, bisexual Tim Drake is Red Robin, Tim Drake has issues, Leo Valdez is a little, I'm not saying that word, canon is my sandbox, I can do what I want, self-hatred, angst and romance, eventual romance, the author regrets nothing, dimension travel, autistic Tim Drake, crossover, panic attacks, anxiety, slow burn, autistic Leo Valdez. Language is in English. This was published in December 15th, 2023. It was updated May 9th, 2025. And there's currently 7 out of 15 left out at the moment. And, well, I can't really get it out of my head. So, here we go. Summary. Leo Valdez was tired. Every night he had been dreaming of the same boy telling him that he wasn't where he was supposed to be. And it was beginning to get on his nerves. He was so close to just giving up. The straw that broke the camel's back, being teleported to some random unknown island and having to deal with some League of Assassins. Tim Drake was angry. He finally got Bruce back, but things never returned to the normal he expected. Now, with dwindling moral compass and paranoia that Roz is up to something again, Tim refuses to slow down. People need protecting, and he's going to be the one to do it. Chapter 1. Notes. I will get parts of canon wrong, but so do official comic book writers too, so who cares? Some things will be adjusted for the fanfic, and because I can't be asked to search through millions of comics to find one reference to the way a certain character acts. Was anyone else completely unsatisfied with how Leo's story ended in the main series? He literally just says he's scared Calypso might leave him for someone else, and then it's over. What kind of ending is that, Rick? On a personal note, To be fair, he did throw Percy and Annabeth into Tartarus and then left us hanging for months before the release date of the next book. Back to the official stuff. Enjoy the weird amalgamation of my special interest. You shouldn't be here. The boy repeated himself for the 15th time. Leo ignored him, continuing his staring match with the brick wall. His dream tonight had found him in a relatively clean alleyway. The sun was shining, people were walking by unbothered, and as usual, the boy was rambling about how out of place Leo was. It was starting to get tiring. The boy looked normal teenager. His clothes were casual, his cornrows stylish, and his posture poor. Every day that week, he appeared in Leo's dreams. At first, he thought he was some Greek thing, the Fates, but nobody at the way station could offer up an explanation. Nobody knew who the kid was, and the kid himself wasn't giving any answers. This isn't right. The boy hadn't blinked yet. I get that, buddy, but I'm gonna need a bit more info. Leo tried to get up in his face, but the guy towered over his 5-6 feet frame. The universe has gone off center. You should be here. The two stared at each other. All it took was a few seconds of silence to get Leo to scream out in agitation. On and on about the goddamn universe. What did you want from me? He placed the gravel crunch beneath his feet. For the first time, the boy seemed to really see Leo, not just looking vaguely in his direction, but actually recognized his presence. I get it now. Leo opened his mouth to speak. However, all that came out were screams as the world around him seemed to started melting like wax. Pools of clay surrounding his feet, making his attempts to run feel like running through molasses. And it was all over, almost as soon as it had started. Sweat covered his sheets and snot ran down his nose as he near slammed his head into the top bunk frame. Slowly, Leo tugged to the bin in his room, tripping over his feet with every step. The remnants of his nightmare tended to linger throughout the day. He felt like he was seeing the boy in his peripheral vision. Already it had started, which definitely didn't help his nausea. Every day it was like this. Dream of that weirdo, puke his brains out, and then pretend it wasn't that big of a deal. If anyone asked him about it, rinse and repeat. Calypso hadn't noticed, and some part of him felt devastated, but another it felt relieved. She finally confirmed what he always knew. Nobody would love him. It felt good to finally accept that and know she was done pretending for his sake. She's not a good actor. Anyone could see how much she'd rather be making music with some boy from band camp. At least this way he doesn't have to feel guilty for wasting her time, for accidentally convincing her that he was worth it. Leo had enough of feeling guilty, because when you feel guilty, you start asking yourself why. Why me? Why this? That leads down some dark paths. You have two choices. You are the fate's punching bag, or you are the root of every problem ever made. Either way, Leo would struggle to hold on to his pitiful excuses for why he was still trying. It would make giving up too easy. So, Leo doesn't tell her. Amy and Joe are darlings that would take time to hear him out, but they're mothers. They have a child. Leo doesn't want to bother them with his constant issues. One day it's, I had a weird dream. Then it's the next and the next and the next. There would be no end, and Leo doesn't want to drag someone else into his journey with him. So Leo doesn't tell them either, or anyone. It's fine. He had already bothered them with his questions about the boy. Any more, and they might think there's something wrong with him. And that's not their problem. They had already recommended asking someone from camp. The next step was forcing him to get help that he doesn't need, and he wouldn't have it. And so Leo got up from his spot, cleaned himself up a little, and went to breakfast like everything was normal. The thought of talking to everyone was daunting. Not that it mattered, because before he could even grab his door handle, a blue portal ripped open, sucking him into it, despite his attempts to hold the floorboards. The swoosh sound that went unheard by the way station's inhabitants. Elsewhere, trees crackled and crunched under the sight of the wind flowing between them. The sound of the ocean waves reverberated through the entire island, and the dormant twin volcanoes stood proudly in the middle of it all. Any odd tourist may consider a permanent stay. The beauty would take over one's thoughts until it was all that was left. And amongst the paradise lay pandemonium. With ancient tapestries lining his walls, legions of ninja at his beck and call, and one big, beautiful secret weapon, Ra's al Ghul, the demon head himself, was waiting in his grand hall. Something had happened. Reports of fires appearing around the island kept coming to his ears for 2 days, but no discernible cause could be found. Someone had infiltrated his island, and he couldn't understand why. This person was sloppy. Evidence littered the beach, and the trail went on until presumably they found some sense. This person was incapable. Ninjas had caught sight of them time and time again, and yet evaded capture. It was intriguing. Crashes could be heard from outside the halls and walls. No doubt priceless collections were smashed into extinction by now. Even so, Ra's al Ghul waited. He sat on his golden throne, his sword by his side, his mind prepped for any possible outcome. But sometimes there's nothing that can prepare you for the bullshit the universe throws at you. All right, man, I'll keep it still. Jeez, you can calm down now. Ra's al Ghul predicted the headache before it actually hit him. This person was loud, like the bird brats. He hoped they weren't teaching his grandson such etiquette, and Al Ghul must uphold certain standards. His ninja entered, one dragging along the person who had intrigued him so. Sand and flames dotted the boy's skin. His clothes were tattered, his hair tangled by small twigs and leaves. On his first thought, Ross saw nothing special. Pyromaniacs were a dime a dozen, but he could feel something from the boy. His entire being felt pulling to him, connecting to him, and he was going to figure out why. Chapter 2. Leo goes through it. Leo had no idea where he was. One second he was in his room, and the next he was on some beach. A beach that was apparently infested with ninjas. Actual, real-life ninjas. It would be so cool if they didn't immediately attack him. But that's been his life since before discovering he was a demigod. He could never catch a break. His experiences allowed for him to get away and stay away when they came after him. Something was in the air in this place. Something was telling him that if he got caught, he wouldn't be coming out the same person. It was fine, honestly. He'd survived gods. A few mortals, albeit mortals very skilled in martial arts, are nothing. Beautiful things can be deadly. He's seen the Aphrodite cabin. And the island was ethereal, like Garden of Eden. Or those oases in Slim Rancher. He kept holding his breath. He wanted to believe that he could defeat this, but lying to himself wouldn't help. Demigods falling into hubris was too common. He wasn't adding himself to the list. So he ran, he hid. He told himself that if it came to it, he would win in a fight, but deep down he knew the truth. Not that it mattered. After 2 days, his confidence and his energy draining, they finally caught him. He would finally find out why he was running in the first place. Men clad in black dragged him for hours through the greenery, poisoned by ash that he had created. They even confiscated his tool belt, which Leo thought was very rude. Eventually, they arrived at the grand building. It had a subtle power in it. Nothing was in your face, but subconsciously you understood a god could live here. Like the island, it felt wrong. It felt dangerous. But Leo had no choice but to enter. He was desperate to fiddle with his hands, even able to just crack a knuckle or two, but the ninjas held him in place. The kind of life he led that could say that and entirely mean it, absolute madness, isn't it? Dealing with gods was tough, but this shit went too far into unbelievable territory. Rambling was his only comfort. All right, men. I'll keep it still. Jeez. You need to calm down. Leo explained as the ninja holding him manhandled him a bit too roughly. Every trinket and knickknack he broke gave him slight bits of satisfaction. Whoever owned this golden palace would be at least a little inconvenienced. It all about those small wins. It's all about those small wins. As he got closer to an ornate set of doors, Leo's fire grew. It came in increments. His desperation to escape would peak, and so would the fire. But then his fear of these actual humans, not monsters, would take over and the fire would die. Distracted by his efforts, he didn't notice when the doors pushed open. Soon enough, he stood before a crusty man dressed up in green robes, like a kind of cult leader. His back was straight, and he leaned his head in a way that allowed him to look down at Leo, even more than he already greater than height did. This guy was sick. Skin thin as paper, muscles consistent, tense, and green tint to everything about him. The green haze upset Leo the most. The man's clothes were almost enough to hide it. With hollow faint, it was, but it was there, and once Leo saw it, he couldn't look away. He had seen a lot of unexplainable things in his life. It takes a lot to truly shock him. Finally, Leo stilled. The green confused him into it. The man took this opportunity to speak. "Who are you?" Leo wanted to make a quip, some joke to make him seem infallible, but it simply wasn't there. In a near whisper, he responded, "Leo?" The man hummed, like a strict teacher. Leo suddenly felt like he was on stage, auditioning for the biggest role in the world. "I'll ask this once more. Who are you?" He paused between each word in the question. "And what are you doing on Infinity Island?" Leo coughed and removed the bug caught in his throat, but his voice still came out hoarse and hesitant. I'm Leo Valdez. I don't know why I'm here. Honestly. He rushed to defend himself as the ninja's hold tightened. "I generally don't know. I was in my room and then a portal opened up and suddenly I'm here." The man leaned back in contemplation, manspreading a bit too much, but Leo guessed the guy was trying to make a point. On his right hand, Leo crossed and uncrossed his fingers. It got him a few strange looks, but it settled his nerves a little. "What can you do?" Leo froze. "Huh? What can you do? You escaped us for 2 days. How?" There was a faux patience in his words, an unspoken timer that had been set for Leo's answer before shit got bad, or rather worse than it had been going. Fire! The boy barely managed to squeak out. There was no point in lying. He had already seen it. Only fire? Who the hell was this guy? People aren't usually this casual about his powers. But the guy had a whole legion of ninjas, so he's probably got a few cogs loose. Only fire, Leo answered, louder than he had been speaking previously. And yet, the man said more to himself than to Leo. Suddenly the man was up, stalking closer to him. He felt like a hamster in a pet shop. When the man grabbed his face, he started inspecting it. Leo felt something. The green haze took over his visions. He could almost feel the color. His heart was beating so heavy in his chest that his vision thumped alongside it, like some giant stomping in front of him. A pit of green lava. That's what they're floating over. Nobody reached to suddenly change in the environment. Nobody reacted when they fell. Nobody reacted when the sizzling green peeled away Leo's skin. Bubbles popped beside his ears, near defining him. Beyond the pool, there was nothing. Leo was nothing beyond it. His own skin drifted around him, slowly being died like every other part of him. His heart went dangerously fast as he boiled. Every gasp for air filled his mouth with more green. He tried to convince himself it was some fucked up energy drink, and to be fair, the taste wasn't half bad, but the burn ingrained itself into the memory right beside his last night with his mama. And then it was over. In a century, only a second had passed, and he was still in the hall, that crusty man still holding his face, if even a bit more startled than before. "Who are you?" Leo's voice came out hoarse. The man nodded to one of the ninjas, and too quickly he was being pulled away. Disoriented, he felt like his soul had been split in two before joining together again. He spoke. "Your stay with us does not have to be difficult. You do as you're told, and little harm will come to you." Leo nodded just to make things faster. "Then I believe that some further study is required." Through the halls, Leo was dragged painfully slow, the man leading the way. If he weren't so scared, he would have nodded off from how bored he was. Eventually, they arrived to the impossible set of stairs. Leo had a sense of foreboding. Shivers ran up and down his body despite getting hotter and further they went down. From one step to another, Leo suddenly felt everything. The thick air touching him, the sweat on his body cooling, his hair itching that particular spot behind his ear. The pit was near. He knew it. And apparently the man was aware of that. The closer they got, the more intrigued he looked. The more Leo tried to slow down their journey. His efforts were futile. They had finished their descent, and it was there right in front of him, the green, and the ninjas kept forcing him closer to it. His attempts of escape got vicious, scratching, clawing at the ninjas. Leo did everything he physically could, but it never mattered. When did his attempts ever matter? They started with the finger, then they got confident enough for a whole arm, before finishing the display by throwing his entire self in. As painful as it had felt earlier, and 10 times more real, the pit consumed him. Green seeped into his eye sockets and soaked his clothes and went under his fingernails and swirled around inside of his lungs until Leo was gone. And once again, he was pulled out of it. Why did it never just finish him? Unconsciously, Leo had set himself alight. The only thing on his mind was the green, so for the first time in his life, he didn't pay it any mind and let himself burn. Things slowly dissipated, and he could see the room once more. He could see the man staring at him with wide eyes, but satisfied smirk. He could see the ninjas take a small step back. He could see the green fire coming off of him. That was new. Leo looked back to the man with horror. He couldn't speak, but he didn't need to. The man sensed his panic. The Lazarus pit really are a wonder, aren't they? After Leo's swim, he was forced back upstairs and trapped in an admittedly comfortable-looking room. The bed was soft. There was a huge open window looking out onto the island, and he had wandered cluelessly for 2 days. That's how it was for the next week. Leo learned the minimal information about his situation, what the Lazarus pits were, what they did to him, and what they wanted with him. However, he managed to at least learn his captor's name, Ra's al Ghul, the demon head of the League of Shadows, as he quite dramatically labeled himself. The days were spent waiting in his room or talking at silent ninjas. Very few signs of Ra's al Ghul's fella When he did show up, it was only to ask Leo about his powers, which he admittedly refused to do. His fire didn't need to be observed. It needed to be repressed, especially whatever this green stuff was. It seemed Roz never got the memo, as on day 8, Leo once again found himself being dragged somewhere. The training room. He was brought to looked to have been destroyed and rebuilt so many times. Roz stood in the front and center. Leo Valdez, I think it's about time we get a showcase of your capabilities. He had a ton of faux kindness that Leo had heard many times before. No, I know. It was hard to speak up in Roz's presence. That's not an option anymore, Firebringer. That was his only warning before the man charged him. Leo would consider himself fast. You had to be as a demigod, but nothing could prepare him for the attack. No monster had been that fast. He brought his arm up to protect against the hits, but it didn't do much against an actually trained martial artist. Even without a weapon, the man knocked Leo back and forth like a punching bag. It happened so quickly, the only thing he could keep track of was his own frantic breathing. Panic attacks were nothing unique, but definitely not the right time. Even so, his steps were wobbly and chest tight. No monsters were ever that fast. Fog covered his brain and his shut eyes tight. He could smell the fire before he felt it. He didn't mean to. He didn't want to. He just couldn't control himself. His arms curled in on himself, trying to make himself as small as possible. Roz said something, but whatever it was lost to Leo. All he could hear was some monster's growl in his left ear and his mother's pained cries in the other. His hand suddenly grabbed onto him. No! The fire spread to the other person against his will. It was his body's natural defense system. He thrashed their hold, begging them to get away, but it was all a fuzz. His own words barely made any sense to him. At some point, he was speaking gibberish. That's enough. That's enough. Screaming reached his ear. He froze, fire burning on, but Leo was completely limp. Roz continued. That's very good. You did well. Leo didn't understand what he did, but it left himself in Roz's grip nonetheless. You are very special, Leo Valdez. Your powers are nothing like I have ever seen before. Nonsense mumbles came out of him in an attempt to dispute Roz's words, but the man kept talking. Somehow you managed to merge the power of the Lazarus pits with your own. It's spectacular. Leo still hadn't calmed down. Roz took a minute to think before moving the two. He gently laid him on the ground and leaned down to his level. See here. He pulled up his trouser leg, revealing his thigh. I have been injured from a fight earlier this month. You healed that injury. Leo didn't really understand. Your powers were capable of that. It's a blessing more than anything else. You healed me. He stared silently at the spot. It seems you need a further demonstration. The man got up, and before Leo could even realize what he was doing, he pulled a knife from the walls. What? Leo called out, but he kept going. He slashed at his hand, blood gushing out. Leo wanted to gag, but all of his energy had depleted. He just sat there, mouth wide open, each step shaking Leo to its core. But the man returned to his spot. Turn on your fire. There was hesitation, but ultimately submission. Instead of the green it had been, a normal orange fire came out. "The Lazarus fire," Roz commanded. "The green, I don't know what to do. I don't even know what that is." Leo's voice rose. Danger spread onto Roz's face, and Leo flinched back. "And that is nobody's failure but your own. You have no understanding of your own powers." The man relaxed slightly. "Come here. Keep that fire burning." Like a scared dog, Leo brought his flaming hand closer to Roz. He didn't move when Roz clasped at hand. Skin sizzled, but Leo was too scared to move. What kind of coward was he? "Focus. Whatever aversions you have to the fire, forget about it. This fire is a part of you. No amount of hatred will change that. So forget about it and focus." Leo did, albeit quite pathetically. If Leo was shaking as much as he felt he was, Roz certainly could feel it too. "The Lazarus fire, you wonder what it is." The boy nodded. "I appreciate word answers, Firebringer." "Yes," he meekly replied. "The Lazarus pits, you never forget how it feels. Pull from that. Take the pain, the anger, turn it into power. Whatever happened when you went under, it changed your fire in ways I don't understand yet. I had my theories, and today they were confirmed. And if you would be so kind as to bring forth the Lazarus fire, I can show you. So take that pain you felt, that sense of dread, and use it." Focus. That's all Leo had to do. So many times in the past, he had tried meditation, or mindfulness, or sitting still in class, and it never worked. Nobody bothered to help him understand, to explain to him that his brain worked differently and that it wasn't his fault. Probably because they actually did think it was his fault. Nobody taught him ways to adapt and adjust so that he could survive in a neurotypical world. The only person to ever give a shit about him was his mama, and she wasn't a trained psychologist. Good. Will isn't enough to fix everything. She could comfort him after the fact, but it never prevented the pain in the first place. But that was good enough for him. All he needed was her. The rest of the world could go to hell. So he never learned how to focus when he actually had a home. And you can bet that he would never learn in the places he found himself afterwards. Camp wasn't good either. For a place full of ADHD-saddled demigods, their support services were fewer to none. There was barely even support for those who were still suffering the effects of the two wars. If Leo wanted a safe place to explore the inner workings of his brain, he wasn't finding it at camp. And it's not like he ever wanted to explore his powers in the first place. So, to pull them both together, a death wish. That's clearly what it was. The man let his hand burn his skin, peeling off like a particularly sloppy face mask. There was no choice in the matter. If Leo was learning to focus, it was here and now. With each second, Leo was acutely aware of Raish's silence, until Raish faded from his mind and all he could think about was the fire. Everything else was irrelevant, including the hand holding his own. Slowly he understood the fire. He could project each thick of flame. The pits returned to him and forced it into the background. He caged the feelings, any burn he felt in the pit. He brought forth to his fire, and finally it started turning into that poison apple green color. Good, Roz praised, and Leo couldn't help but agree. His fire had never brought him happiness. He had always pictured the ideal scenario as him having very reserved relationship with the flames, like one would have with a coworker you don't like. It never occurred to him that he could enjoy working with it, that he could master it as just another limb and feel pride in his control of it. Race removed his hand. All burns had been washed away by the green. Do you understand now what your fire is capable of? He nodded. When Ra's subtle smirk dropped slightly, Leo answered again. Yes, good. The Lazarus pits have saved my life many times, and to think you could do that with just your flame. If I hurt someone, I could fix it? I could heal them? The man nodded. Why? He took a second to think before answering. Perhaps you could provide further insight. Where did you come from? Why here? I can only assume you were meant to be led to the pits. I generally don't know. I was in the bunker, but then this portal just opened up and sucked me into it. A bunker? Yes. And how did you get your powers? Leo paused, but continued at Raish's expected face. Do you know about Greek mythology? Yes. I'm a demigod of Hephaestus. I'm his son. The Greek gods are real. Leo waited for the shock and surprise. Instead, Rush continued, and your powers are a result of this. Your fire. Yeah, they are. I don't know how that led to this. He held up the Lazarus fire. Raish stood up, and Leo rushed to follow him. Tell me more. And Leo did. Described camp and the war. He went into his childhood, pointedly avoiding any talk about his mother. He started to mention the bunker, and Raish interrupted him. Do you know of a Wonder Woman? Leo just stared at him blankly. Who the hell was Wonder Woman? What kind of a name is that? He thought out loud. Superman? No. Batman. What is wrong with these people? Batman? Seriously? Is it like a werewolf situation? He's half man, half bat? Roz ignored the incredulity. Interesting. Firebringer. I don't think this is your Earth. What? Whatever that portal was, it is taking you from your own universe and placed you into ours. Like dimension traveling? Leo let out a nervous laugh. Was that even possible? Yes. But how am I going to get back? Raish looked sympathetic. No, I got here somehow, so there has to be a way back. The man seemed to reassess. There may be. I certainly have the resources to look further into it. Yeah, but it may take months, years even. In that time, I wonder what could happen to you. Someone lost in a world they have no understanding of. This bastard. Leo looked at him, hoping he would make him say it. He didn't have to take the bait. Could I stay here? The Firebringer asked. Certainly. Leo relaxed, but as Raish continued, there are, however, conditions. Everyone on this island has to do their part. You won't be the exception. And what will that be? He held his breath. All that I ask is that you help me understand your powers, and if necessary, heal any wounds. Okay, yeah, I can do that, honestly. Leo thought he was getting off kind of easy. If he had to stay in this expensive room on that beautiful island and just give a few power showcases in return, he would say he was getting the pretty sweet deal. Well then, allow me to give you a tour. Okay, I know I said that this is a one-shot, but those first 2 chapters killed me. And I'm yet again proving to every AO3 writer that they should not give consent for a podfic from me, because apparently I suck at them. My reading was a little crazy back there. I especially kept switching from Raish to Roz. Why? I don't know. Anyways, I'm getting kind of exhausted, and the hurricane is definitely knocking out the power more than it needs to be, so I'm going to call it quits. I'm going to just screenshot a picture of the title page like I did my other one. The Merlin podfic will return shortly as soon as I muster up the courage to go chapter 2. In other words, you guys have a wonderful rest of your day or your evening. Go outside, touch grass, go to sleep, drink water, all that cool stuff that we're advertising. Have a wonderful rest of your day. This is a last minute message. I totally forgot to tell you to leave the author some kudos because, let's be honest, you can comment on my inaccuracy while praising the author for creating such an amazing thing.